Hello and welcome everybody to the GPVWC Superleague Lights Round 11, the Belgian Grand Prix. My name is Jacob Hancox, and joining me in the commentary box is, of course, Ewan Gale, and we are here to bring you the 11th round of Superleague Lights action. And as you can see, we're already getting right towards the end of qualifying here in Spa.
Yeah, we are. Good to see you again, Jacob. And it's Kintai on top at the moment. Alessandro Kintai for Pescara with the fastest lap so far, but it is so close. Only a tenth between himself and Michael Ayres. We are watching Dino Paolini go around Pouon for his final lap. But yeah, of course, a bit of a mixed result last time out. Not too much change in the driver standings, but let's see what the main protagonist can do at the end of qualifying here at Spa.
Yeah, it doesn't look to me like Matthew Williams is going to have another off weekend, at least in qualifying, currently sitting up there in third. And, of course, Kintai, a critical return to form after missing the race last time out. And what an opportunity that would have been for the Italian. But that was then, and this is now. And we are, of course, at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, a fantastic spot for a race, probably the best racetrack in the world, in my opinion, or at least one of the top five, no doubt about that. Dino Paolini is now rounding the final corner and will cross the line and move into 11th position for Royal Blue Racing. Now, just looking at the time left, I don't think that Alessandro Kintai has enough time to set another flying lap. I'm not certain about that, but I think it might be all over for Kintai.
Yeah, I think it is too. Here comes Jack Mayer, the second of the stacks. Obviously, Williams' teammate hasn't always been at the top of the order in qualifying this season, but a much better outing for Jack Mayer coming into the bus stop, or what it used to be the bus stop, even final corner on the circuit. All a bit slow and clumsy, that corner, but Jack handled it perfectly. Over the line he goes, and I think he stays where he is. Yeah, stays P8.
Yeah. Stays P8 indeed. Actually didn't even manage to improve on his previous best lap time. Lost it all in that final sector. And that hasn't helped him out at all. Now, there's Michael Ayres and Matthew Williams. They're both out there on flying laps, and those are the two drivers most likely to challenge for the pole position that currently belongs to the Pescara of Alessandro Kintai. Kintai's teammate, Sandeep Singh, is also out there, and he's at a similar part of the track to Ayres and Williams as well. So they're all going to be nip and tuck as they get towards the line here. Ayres was slightly faster of the three in that first sector. And Matteo Kiersmakers, who's currently down in ninth, also had a similarly quick first sector.
It did, and interestingly, it was actually slower than Kiersmakers' personal best through Sector 1, so that gives a bit of an idea of what his setup might be, maybe a bit of downforce trimmed off to go faster in Sector 1. Ayres a little bit slower than Kintai at the moment, about a tenth between it, needs to absolutely ace the final corner.
Williams is purple in Sector 2. This could be another pole for Matthew Williams, but will it be a pole for Michael Ayres? Round the final corner as he comes up to cross the line in the 8.6e racing car, and he stays second, failing to improve on his previous best lap time. Now it's just up to Matthew Williams, and we'll see what he can do as Kiersmakers goes fourth. Williams goes third, still not improving in terms of position. Sandeep Singh is going to be one of the last ones, and he moves into fourth to displace Matteo Kiersmakers. Jukka-Pekka Laulu is still out there. He's crossing the line now, and he will be qualifying in 10th. And I think with that, we basically have all qualifying wrapped up.
Yeah, so straight away it looks as if Williams with the fastest middle sector time, maybe a little bit more downforce than the competitors around him, losing a bit of time in Sector 1 and Sector 3. The long drag, of course, down the Camel Straight and through Blanchemont.
Yeah, I was thinking when he got that purple middle sector, I was thinking, oh, you know what, you might just have this one here, but as you see there, only third at the end. It was Alessandro Kintai who took pole position from Michael Ayres, just about a tenth of a second in it, and then a further tenth down to Matthew Williams and Sandeep Singh. Matteo Kiersmakers, then Deegan Fairclough, always lively, he's in sixth. Dawatapa in the second Zederick, he's seventh with Amari Watson, Jack Mayer, and Jukka-Pekka Laulu rounding out to the top 10. Laulu's teammate Dino Paolini right there in the next Royal Blue Racing in 11th, with Vodka Hoekstra and Frank Hamming also joined at the hip in 12th and 13th. Ivan Leonov and Pavel Andrzejewski in 15th, Stefano Zanrosso in 16th, Dylan Platt, Yanis Volborn, Sean Jones, and Hygo Poom. And then for the last five drivers, we have Matthias Dabrowski, Mike Bell, James Lambert, Rauno Muru, who is driving their first race of the season for TTF, and Jorn Dix, who's driving their first race of the season for Razor. So with that, I suppose we have a little bit of time here to just try and digest some of what we've seen, the brief qualifying that we've seen. Sorry we couldn't bring you the whole qualifying session, of course, but we did bring you the sharp end of things. And just, having seen the end of that qualifying, is there anything that jumps out to you, Ewan, anything of note?
Like I just said, really, it's the fact that it looks as if Williams might have a tad more downforce with the middle sector time he put in compared to his rivals around him, but also the first and third sector a little bit down in the times, about a tenth in each of them. So not a lot, don't get me wrong, but that could become crucial when the DRS train starts to break up after the pit stops, and then you get a bit of action on track. He might struggle to defend from some of the guys around him. So that'll be interesting. Just having a look through. So obviously you mentioned Ondraziewski. He's in for Zubinski this round. Also, last time out, Thomas Harvey, he won, of course, but he didn't compete in qualifying. Only 25 competitors in qualifying. And Thomas Harvey, who won last time out, was not one of them.
Yeah, indeed. I don't know if Thomas Harvey's actually going to be able to take part in the race itself or not. I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes we do have latecomers. I'm just hearing that, in fact, Thomas Harvey is not here and will not be participating today, so cannot defend the streak of one race win that Thomas Harvey is currently on after that pretty confusing and very strange race last time out at Manicourt that really flipped a lot of people's expectations, I feel. So it seems like we're more or less back to usual fare here with Kintai, Ayres, and Williams, the top three in the drivers' standings, also the top three in qualifying, although not in the same order.
Yeah, and we usually get a little bit of drama when we've got Keersmakers and Fairclough up the top as well. They're not afraid to stick their nose down the inside of some of the bigger guns in the championship. That's contributed to their up and down form. But we know we're going to get excitement, especially with a long drag down from La Source, the hairpin to start the lap, up through a Rouge, Radion, down the Camel Straight until they come on the first lap. It could be chaos.
Absolutely could be. And I'd like to see chaos of the good kind. There's good chaos and there's bad chaos. Bad chaos ends up with fewer than 20 drivers remaining in the race after the first lap. But good chaos, that's just get a lot of positions changing, a lot of hairy moments. That's what you want to see, right?
That's the one. Not bad chaos. We've had one or two moments of that this season, especially involving Alessandro Quintai, unfortunately losing out in two races, a few races ago, actually, one of them in Austria. Yeah. So don't want any of that. We want the good side-by-side, good hard racing that we've seen so often this season. And I'm sure that, the caliber of the guys in the field, all 25 of them, have got the ability to do that.
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned there about Quintai as well is it's been a real disaster for the Italian season because there were those two races, those two DNFs that were not Quintai's fault that you were just mentioning, and then also not being able to attend last race at Manicourt. With those three races, with decent points, the sort of point scoring finishes you'd expect from Quintai at all three of those races, we'd be seeing a very, very tight battle at the top of the standings right now between Quintai and Williams. And that is in part due to Quintai has been very, very good at the races that have been clean and that he's been able to attend. But also Matthew Williams has kind of gone off the boil in recent weeks.
Yeah, but remember, the fact that Williams has got that lead, it means he doesn't have to take those risks. And that's another factor to think about today and next time out in Italy. And as we can see, Singapore, Japan, US and Brazil at the end of the season. Williams doesn't need to bother battling side by side with a Keersmakers or a Fairclough. He's more than happy finishing 5th or 6th if he so has to, due to his pace. He can still just consistently pick the points up, not put his car in any risk. Of course, he's going to want to win. I'm not saying that he's happy to settle for 5th or 6th, but he's not going to take any undue risks. Whereas your Keersmakers, your Faircloughs, you've got Quintai's teammate Sandeep Singh alongside him on the grid as well. All of those guys are going to be more than happy to stick a nose where maybe they shouldn't be sticking it. So plenty of variables still to go, even though there's quite a big gap in the championship.
Yeah, nothing to lose sort of mentality for them, really. Because, they have positions they could lose in the standings, but you've got to imagine that for someone like Keersmakers, winning a race would be a bigger deal than potentially coming 8th rather than 7th in the overall standings. Of course, you want the drivers to fight for every position in those standings, and they will be fighting for those positions as well. That won't be out of Keersmakers' mind entirely. But when you get that carrot of the race win being dangled in front of you, you don't start to think, well, actually, I might go down to 8th in the standings.
Well, this is the thing, and this is really a mark of how up and down everyone below Williams, Kintai, Singh, and Lalu, to be fair, Lalu's been consistent, is you drivers have been up and down, and it means that they're not consistently scoring the points, which means that actually you've got a massive group of drivers within 10 points of each other. So Martin Hemmingson only drove the first 3 races of the season, got 2 or 3 podiums. He's still 8th in the championship or 9th in the championship because everyone else, by swapping their positions around and retiring in some races and coming 5th in some races, coming 3rd in some races, they're taking points off each other, which is the top 5 in the championship, because they're always in the top 5. They aren't doing that. So, like you said, a Fairclough, a Hemmingson, a Keersmakers, a 3rd for them is massive because that will propel them up the standings. Keersmakers at the moment is 7th in the standings.
Yeah.
A win for him, especially with Harvey not here today, who's in 6th, will propel him up the standings. And all of a sudden he's looking at the back of Lalu and Singh for 4th and 5th. So yeah, you've got that to think about as well, especially if you're in that sort of that mid top 10 sort of standing. It's going to get a bit dicey, I think.
Absolutely, and we'll see soon enough how dicey it's going to get. We'll go to a brief break right now where we let the drivers finish off their warm-ups, and we'll be back with you when the formation lap begins for the Belgian Grand Prix. Don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a few minutes. And welcome back, everyone. The drivers are now as warm as they can be in their cockpits for the GPVWC Superleague Lights race here, round 11, the Belgian Grand Prix, brought to you by GPVWC and by myself, Jacob Hancox, and Ewan, Gale in the commentary box, and Tom Stevens on the cameras for us. And yeah, so Ewan, what are we looking for off the start line here, and what are we expecting for the race to come?
We're looking for off the start line. It's maybe a little bit different actually with such a tight hairpin at the start. Is actually going around the outside you might be able to get a bit more drive for that long run all the way down to the comms. So it depends how brave you're going to be through Eau Rouge and Radillon as to whether you're going to go side by side with your competitors. But if you can get some nice drive round the first corners when the Pescara goes off at the end of warm up. That doesn't matter. It'll buff out.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you'll get some dicey action up in the first lap. I think it depends on which of the top 10 really are bravest and have the most to gain. For the race ahead, then good weather conditions. It's not too warm, not too cold, so tyres pretty much will be in perfect nick. And reliably told. By our cameraman and, of course, GPVWC racer Tom Stevens, that the optimum strategy will be a soft, medium, soft to get through the 36-lap race. So, but look out for people trying to do a one-stop. That could absolutely turn strategy on its head, and we've seen that already this season. That some of the braver guys on strategy have been able to get some really decent results. Doing the opposite to what other people have done.
Yeah, and I know you all at home couldn't hear that, but when you was talking about Tom there, Tom said, "Oh no!" So that was good fun. The drivers just about to then get ready for the formation lap, doing some final tweaks, setups, that sort of thing. And there you can see them all on the grid and ready to go down towards La Source for the last time before they get there in anger in racing conditions here on this fine Tuesday. Here's the grid then. Alessandro Quintai on pole from Michael Ayres alongside. Then championship leader Matthew Williams in third with Sandeep Singh, the second Pescara, in fourth. After them, we have Matteo Keersmakers and Deegan Fairclough, both keen to make an impact on the third row. Dara Tapper and Amari Watson are seventh and eighth. And then in ninth, it's Jack Mayer with a better qualifying than usual in the second stacks, followed by Jukka-Pekka Laulu and Dino Paolini, the two Royal Blue cars, with Vodka Hoekstra lining up in 12th. And Vodka's just ahead of his teammate Frank Hamming, who has got a decent qualifying there in 13th. Ivan Leonov 14th, the first of the Revos. Pavel Andrzejewski in 15th, with Stefano Zanrosso in 16th. Dylan Platt and Yanis Volborn 17th and 18th, with Sean Jones and Heigo Poon on 19th and 20th. Matthias Dabrowski in the second PLS car is 21st, with Mike Bell in 22nd for Neptune, James Lambert 23rd, and Rauno Muru in 24th. And finally, in the lone member of the rear row on the grid, it is Jorn Dix for Razor GP. So that is our grid lineup then for the race here today. And just looking down it, there aren't that many surprises, I would say, in general. It's sort of, with perhaps the exception of Jack Mayer being a little bit higher up than usual, because usually what we're used to seeing is Jack Mayer having a slightly poor qualifying and then a really fantastic race thereafter. This time around, Jack's actually got the qualifying nailed. But outside of that, I don't think there's too many surprises with this grid lineup.
No, not really. I mean, the thing is, it's so competitive that they sort of settle into a rhythm of achieving their potential in qualifying. And that's why we sort of get used to seeing people where they are, because it's not that they're qualifying slowly, it's just because the field is so good, do you know what I mean? So, Andrzejewski standing in for Zubinski, doing a decent job in P15. Maybe Leonov down in P14 will be a little bit disappointed that he's not down in the reaches of the top 10. Yukbeka Lalu as well, I would expect to be sort of 5th, 6th, 7th. So, but we know that Lalu is brilliant on his tyres, so he could really come into play towards the end of the race.
Yeah, Lalu's going to have to be good on those tyres, though, being the furthest back person starting on soft tyres. I believe with the exception of Mike Gale in 22nd, who I think is also going to be starting on those soft tyres. Everyone else outside the top 10 seems to have opted for mediums instead. Now, we see as the TTF of Raunamuru lining up on the rear of the grid. All 24 cars on the grid with one in the pit lane as well as the lights are coming on here in Belgium. And we get underway, and it looks like a really poor start actually for Alessandro Quintai immediately off the line, and that's going to give an opportunity for Michael Ayres around the outside here of La Source, and they're going to go side by side. Tighter line means that Alessandro Quintai is going to have a rougher time on the run down towards Les Combes. Through Eau Rouge they go now, and they're not going to be side by side through there. It's still Quintai leading the way from Ayres and then Williams. Singh also still there in fourth as well, but look how close Michael Ayres already is to the rear end of Alessandro Quintai, side by side as they go down the Kemmel Straight. And Matthew Williams almost sent into the wall there by a late move from Quintai. They're still side by side out of the front, and Ayres has bought the right to some space through this chicane, through Les Combes, and they make big contact in the final part, and Quintai is round again. How many times will this happen to the Italian?
Yeah, unfortunate. I didn't actually see it because I was looking at the massive NASCAR pack down behind. There was a bit of contact out of La Source. I think it was between possibly Tapper, because he's gone down to the back. Lalu's gone down to the back as well. But what had happened is they'd touched out of La Source and caused a bit of a roadblock all the way up through Eau Rouge and Radion. It meant that you had 3, 4, 5 wide down the Kemmel Straight, and that came to a head then as Tapper went round just in the background, as you saw, with Quintai going round at the same place. So there's the chaos we were on about. Unfortunately, it was a mix of the good and the bad, and Quintai again, as you said, coming out worse off yet again.
Yeah, and you've got to imagine there's going to be words said between Quintai and Ayres when it comes to the end of this race. Frank Hamming has also lost positions. He's gone down into 24th from 13th on the grid. So Tapper, Lalu, Hamming and Quintai all coming a cropper in one way or another on the opening lap here of this race, which we are just coming to the completion of now. With Michael Ayres now leading the way, with Quintai all the way at the back. Williams is second, Sandeep Singh still there in third. Then you have Fairclough ahead of Kiers Mackers, and Jack Mayer has also been able to get ahead of Amari Watson. He is now up in sixth position with Watson in seventh. Vodka Hoekstra has had a good start, is the lead runner currently on medium tyres. As here comes Matthew Williams on Michael Ayres already, not even waiting for the DRS here as Williams tries to go around the outside. This is what Ayres did to Quintai last time around, and Matthew Williams backs out of it on this occasion. Michael Ayres holding on to first.
Yeah, holds on well as well. So that was a bit surprising after everything I said about what the downforce levels were. Obviously not enough to stop Williams getting a nice draft down the straight and being able to attack and see if he can stay there. Was that his only opportunity of stint one? We'll see in a bit. Look at Andrzejewski up 5 on the first lap, and Mike Bell as well from the 20-somethings up into P13, making those soft tyres work beautifully at the start.
Yeah, 9 positions gained by Mike Bell. Fantastic start then for Neptune, a team which could use a very big result at the moment, currently sitting only 14th in the constructors' standings with 25 points to their name. So if Mike Bell could pull something out of the bag for one of the many blue teams we have here in Superleague Lights, that would be very much appreciated by the organisation. Here's Ivan Leonov, who you mentioned you were surprised to see significantly outside the top 10 in qualifying, doing his best to make amends for that. Currently in 11th position, having gained a little bit from the misfortunes of others, but actually having lost out pretty significantly in terms of both Volborn and Andrzejewski, both ending up ahead of the Bulgarian.
Yeah, and Volborn is one that I missed out of my list of people who had mega starts, because actually Volborn was behind Andrzejewski on the grid. So I said Andrzejewski went up 5 places. Well, Volborn's gone up even further, so a really good start from Volborn, using every bit of his experience in the Razor. And yeah, now we're going to get a little bit of action with DRS, I feel.
Yeah, we'll see then if there's going to be any action. Looks like out front they might even be alongside one another here, because Jack Mayer in the second Stacks car thinking about a move on Matteo Kiersmakers, but not being able to take it. Meanwhile, out at the front there has been a change for the lead, and that is Matthew Williams getting past Michael Ayres and into the lead of this race, despite the fact that he seems to be running a higher downforce setup.
Yeah, so that'll be DRS assistance, no doubt, down into Lecom, and you know, with Ayres just punching the hole, there's not a lot he would have been able to do. But of course, it'll be his turn next time round, so he'll stick with him through the middle part of the lap, obviously making sure not to burn out his tyres too much in the turbulent air, through Fania, down into Stavlo, try and get a nice run out of Blanchemont, maybe out of Stavlo, through Blanchemont, and maybe have a little go into the final corner. But it looks as if Williams, with the turbulent air stop in Ayres, has just managed to create a bit of a gap and make sure he can stay ahead, at least until the next DRS zone up at the top of the hill.
Williams isn't the only driver on the move either, because Deegan Fairclough has been able to get past Sandeep Singh and up into third. And now Fairclough is actually setting faster sector times than the cars out in front. So Deegan Fairclough may well become a participator in the conversation for the lead of this race in the laps to come. Admittedly, it will be harder for Deegan being the third car in a DRS train. We'll see. With enough battling between the front two, there might well be an opportunity for the young Englishman. Let's watch with Michael Ayres now and see if we can pull up towards Matthew Williams with the benefit of the DRS, which will be opening just about now. And you can see already getting much, much closer to the rear wing of that Stacks, and is close enough to think about the move. Williams forced to go defensive there into the first part of Lecom. And Ayres can't quite break late enough. Looks for a switchback, can't find that either. Matthew Williams still in first for the time being.
The run through Blanchemont, the slipstream was worth about 3/10, give or take, on the last lap between Ayres and Williams. So that's interesting to see how that plays out through the rest of the race. Here we are looking at Hygo Poon getting a little bit shaky through Lecom, down into the downhill section, and he is chasing Jones for P14. A bit of a train behind Mike Bell, who might start to find a little bit of wear on his softs after such a heroic start. He's starting to drop a little bit off Dino Paolini now. Of course, Mike Bell's standing in as well, so not as used to the cars as Paolini and Leonov ahead of him.
Yeah, and are you surprised actually to see relatively few cars within 1 second of each other? Also, there's still plenty. But compared to what we see at other circuits, it seems like the cars are just getting a bit more strung out than what we would usually expect here in Superleague Lights.
Yeah, but I think that comes from the fact you've got so many high-speed corners through the middle part of the lap. You know, you think of Pouon, and then Fanya's pretty medium to high-speed chicane. Stavlo, there isn't really a braking zone. So, you know, the three main corners of the middle sector are all, you know, high downforce, high speed. That means you've got more dirty air to travel into. That means you've got to look after your tyres a little bit more to make sure you hit your stint targets. So Michael Ayres, though, doesn't look as if that's bothering him, and neither does Fairclough, who's closing in as well, because they're sticking within that DRS margin that you were talking about. Is Ayres close enough to make a move down into the I don't think so, and Williams has gone defensive early anyway. But that's what Williams has got to be careful of here, because he's sort of defending thin air. I think it's almost because he knows he's got the advantage in the middle sector that he's not putting himself at risk. On another track, if you start defending thin air like that, you're going to put yourself at risk. As Jones makes the moves past Mike Bell, as we were saying.
Yeah, one only has to think back to what, the 2005 Japanese Grand Prix, Giancarlo Fisichella defending clear air against Kimi Räikkönen, but never mind that for now, because there's Sean Jones. currently ahead now of Mike Bell. So good stuff from Sean Jones for Cosmo Powerworks, which is the team currently sitting at the very bottom, propping up the constructors' standings. And they've got 8 points at the moment. So Sean Jones currently in a points-paying position and on an upwards trajectory. So that's a good sign for Cosmo Powerworks. Hopefully for them, he'll be able to bring home some good points for the team. Out at the front, we have Williams, Ayres and Fairclough about 3 seconds ahead of Sandeep Singh, who is currently the conductor of a train between himself, Keersmakers, Jack Mayer and Omari Watson.
Yeah, so all a little bit stable as everyone finds their feet into the first stint. 5 laps down, imagining sort of 5 or 6 more laps of the stint if you're on a soft tyre. Now this is where we start to look at your Vodka Hoekstras, your Volborns, your Andrzejewski, Leonov Paolini, all on the medium tyre. What are they going to do? Are they going to try and extend and try a cheeky one-stop? Are they going to go soft at the end? Are they going to even go on a medium for the next stint? Let's see what the tyres and how the tyres respond to each individual driver. Look out, on edge. The top 3 were through a Rouge, and actually Fairclough's got a little bit more speed than Michael Ayres at the moment. So Ayres now starting to look in his mirror.
Yeah, I thought I saw getting some Ayres time there, if you will. I thought briefly there. I was just behind. Oh, wow, that's not how you do that one. Jack Mayer getting a bit entangled there with Matteo Keersmakers having to take to the escape road. And with that, Keersmakers will be able to hold on to 5th position. Yeah,
it was a decent rejoin, though, from Jack Mayer as well. Coming across the grass, easy to lose control and take someone out on the way back. Managed to slot into that gap between Keersmakers and Watson nicely. So this is that subgroup we were on about, the guys who won't be afraid to take risks. You've got Fairclough behind Ayres and Williams, who are in the top 3 in the championship, of course. And then you've got these guys who will absolutely be bare knuckles with each other. Keersmakers as well, home race for him, so he'll want to really put in a good result and make sure to kickstart his championship, like we said, with Harvey not racing, just to jump ahead.
Yeah, Matteo Keersmakers is a driver who's often seemed like one of the fastest drivers at any given race, and just something tends to go wrong. It's been a similar way for Deegan Fairclough as well. A lot of the time they're involved in incidents that they are at least a participator in, shall we say, but they haven't necessarily had the rub of the green either, as there, Jack Mayer getting the rub of the tarmac there with those rear tyres, looking up the rear brakes, I think, a little bit into the bus stop, but holding on to the car. Once again, a good car control there from Jack Mayer.
Yeah, and that's frustration, that is, after what happened at the Com on the previous lap. And I think what's happened is that Jack Mayer's probably faster over a lap. The problem is that everywhere he needs to be faster to make a move, Keersmakers has just got the edge, getting out the traction zones a little bit. So, but look, he's a bit closer this time. Look how defensive Keersmakers has gone already, giving it a bit of the Alonso weave down the straight. I don't think Mayer's close enough to make a move this time, though.
Yeah, still just stuck there behind the Belgian for the time being. And bad news for Jack Mayer is the fact that Matteo Keersmakers is homing back in on Sandeep Singh. Fell away a little bit after they tangled a couple of laps ago. Keersmakers and Mayer is further behind. This is Mike Bell in a battle with Mateusz Dabrowski. Bell trying to allay his downward spiral in this race since the opening lap when he gained a fair few positions, but now he finds himself back down in 15th. He was able to hold Dabrowski at arm's length this time. But those soft tyres are definitely going away for Mike Bell at this stage.
Yeah, they are a little bit. So expect him to maybe be one of the earlier stoppers unless he does something really audacious the way that his trajectory is going at the moment. Mayer still trying to catch up to Keersmakers, who's run slightly wide through Stavelo, now down in the run through Blanchard. But actually the slipstream seeming to work a little bit better here than it is up at the top of the hill. So yeah, really closing in, get as close as you can, make sure you get good drive out of the source, and then you've got your move going. But as you said, Keersmakers starting to close in to Sandeep Singh's Pescara. Interestingly, Sandeep Singh actually has done this all season. He's not that he's slow in the first stint, but he hasn't got the outright performance of the people around him, and then he brings himself into the race, and actually you'll see him do something in the second or third stint that makes you think, why can you do that at the start, Sandeep?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and it's not like it's a raw pace thing either. It must just be a high fuel situation, I suppose, because in qualifying, he got up there in 4th on merit in qualifying, so it's certainly not a raw pace issue for Sandeep Singh. But yeah, maybe struggling a little bit relative to some of the other front runners with high fuel scenarios. Here comes Jack Mayer now with a better opportunity, but still not a very good opportunity to get past Matteo Keersmakers. Just had to tuck back in behind the Belgian once again. and he's going to be very well acquainted with what the rear wing of a Zederic looks like by the end of this race. Bell went to try and block off Dabrowski there, didn't realize that Dabrowski was already alongside, and still Dabrowski is going to go for the move, and once again, Bell uncompromising around the outside. That was a good defense there from Mike Bell in Lecon, although running over the exit curve there won't help, but maybe a little bit dodgy down the Kemmel Straight.
A little bit dodgy, all aboard the Bell train, as we'd say. Yeah, they're a bit naughty. But, yeah, Dabrowski was alongside, I think, and he did run off the road, but obviously not for us to decide which way that one goes. I expect Dabrowski to get through sooner rather than later, though. He's got the pace over Mike Bell at the moment. Jack May is still behind Kismakers, although he looks an awful lot closer this time around, only 3/10 down. About 3/10 closer than he was last lap. Maybe he'll have a bit of a lunge into the final corner, into the heavy braking zone. No.
Thought about it, but ended up actually braking, if anything, a smidgen earlier than Matthew Kiersmakers. Just want to set it up for the DRS straight. Not this one, of course, but the main DRS zone along the Kemmel Straight. As they'll brake now into La Source. And you can see Jack Mayer running a lot deeper into La Source to try and get a better exit, try and set himself up for a slingshot down the hill. But I think on this occasion he might have just outbraked himself a little bit.
And it's easy enough to say, well, you know, we can settle in. We're only 9 laps in. It's a quarter of the way through a race. But already he's, 6 seconds off Fairclough in third. And that'll be where they're looking as the two leaders go side by side through their comp. Ayres on the outside of Matthew Williams. That's a great move.
Fantastic driving there by Michael Ayres. Matthew Williams will send it back towards Bruxelles. That would have been quite something. And thankfully, no contact between the two of them in that corner. Deegan Fairclough looking in. He'll be not saying that's thankfully. He'd have loved to see those two crashing into the side of one another. No doubt about that. Michael Ayres now leads the way once again, reclaiming first position from Matthew Williams. And Deegan Fairclough is still right there. He's not losing any pace as this stint goes on.
As I said before the race, Matthew Williams will take no risks. that was really dicey. You don't really see moves from when you're already behind into that corner. You usually see them side by side. So really, really, really brave from Matthew Williams. Did well actually, I think, in the end to back out. But Fairclough back within a second then of the top two. And of course DRS is going to come back into effect across the start finish line and up at the top of the hill. This will probably be a repeat.
We'll see whether that is going to be exact replay of what we saw on the last lap within half a second. That's roughly where you need to be here to think about making a move, and you can see Williams getting closer as they head towards La Source. The gap will extend out a little bit, but yeah, Williams within 0.4 of a second already. This is almost certainly going to be a move at least attempted by Matthew Williams on Michael Ayres. Not much Ayres can do at this stage other than just pin the throttle and hope and pick a side on which to defend against the championship leader. Deegan Fairclough is also really, really close in attendance. He might try and follow Williams through around the outside here as well, and he's just about going to be alongside Ayres, but Ayres, it does manage to slot himself back into second, but Matthew Williams once again trading places with Ayres for the race lead.
Yeah, credit where credit's due for Deegan as well, because we've seen Fairclough earlier this season and before. You know, that's the type of opportunity that he'd look for and then get his braking zone wrong underneath the rear wing of another car. So good driving as Anderziewski goes past Janis Volborn for P9.
Yeah, Kriskal moved that as well because Volborn had been losing time hand over fist to Vodka Hoekstra and everyone else ahead of them. Hoekstra is also on the medium tyres. Everyone ahead of Hoekstra is currently on the soft tyres. So it's a straight fight between the likes of Andrzejewski, Volborn, Leonov, Paulini and Vodka Hoekstra. But that 8.5 second gap that ballooned out between Hoekstra and Volborn has left the likes of Andrzejewski with quite a lot to do if they want to claim any more positions in this race.
Well, yeah, because, you know, Hoekstra's only 10 seconds off the race lead, so when the pit stop strategy start playing themselves out, he'll be in a really good position to jump up into maybe the top 5. You know, when everyone goes onto the yellow mediums, he'll be on the softs, he'll be faster. Obviously, Andrzejewski now, 18, 19, 20 seconds down, so not as good for him. I think Mayer's lost the position down to P7. That's because he's in the pit lane.
So Jack Mayer is going to be the first one of the front runners to pit and get off of those soft tyres. Even Mike Bell, who's been struggling with that Red Bull tyre, is still holding on to his down in 16th at the moment. Meanwhile, back up at the front, here is Jack Mayer's teammate, Matthew Williams, who is once again forced to go defensive against Michael Ayres. Cuts back across the road just before the braking zone there. You could tell that threw Ayres off a little bit, didn't know exactly what to do in that scenario, and Fairclough not exactly taking the comfiest line through Lake On there, but all drivers managed to get through that one unscathed.
Yeah, that was probably a little bit on the edge, although I think acceptable from Williams. It wasn't too late in the day to make that move back across.
Yeah.
But it gives Ayres something to think about. Maybe Ayres needs to commit a little bit earlier, or maybe throw a dummy, outside to inside. Although we've seen in recent weeks that doesn't always work either. Fairclough are right up the back of both of them and doing a fine job settling in and really putting himself in a really good position on Dick's pit as well for his first stop. Jack Mayer, I can only imagine, although we did say 10 or 11 laps, but I can only imagine he's first in because obviously he's been tucked up behind Keersmakers, he's had a few slides, he's been off into the grass, so maybe a little bit more heat through the tyres, maybe a little more stress through the tyres. That's why he's probably pitted before anyone else.
Yeah, and maybe also getting the feeling that maybe Jack wasn't able to show his true pace in the situation he was in the race, kind of bottled up behind a few cars in the middle of one of those DRS trains. Now does find himself bottled up behind Sean Jones instead in the Cosmo Powerworks car. However, there's no cars immediately ahead of Jones, so Jack Mayer should be able to find a way past and up into 12th come the next lap. Meanwhile, back out at the front, Williams has a bit more of a comfortable lead on this lap to second place driver Michael Ayres. It's actually Ayres who's in trouble now from Deegan Fairclough. You can see just how close they are, and that takes bravery to be that close through Radion. The DRS is open and already they are side by side. Both cars, of course, having the DRS. Williams can pick which driver he wants to give the slipstream to right now. He's given it to Deegan Fairclough, who's going to sweep around the outside of Michael Ayres and up into second.
Yeah, really good move from Deegan, really good driving all round as well, because Williams again committed to his defence early on, but then came back across when he saw that they were side by side behind, and Ayres gave plenty of room as well as he was defending on the inside, knew that he didn't have to put himself in a dangerous position straight away. I think he got a little bit squirrely out of the source and it gave him a bit of a drop in traction. That's why he lost so much time to Williams in front, and that's why Fairclough is right underneath his rear wing up through Rouge and Radion. Textbook move from Fairclough around the outside, knew that he had the race in line, up into P2, and now he can really hound Matthew Williams. I've got a feeling his tyres are going off because he's dropped off the backler.
Yeah, he's starting to drop away from these front two, and in fact, Deegan Fairclough really is harassing Williams right now. He's going to be very, very close by the time we get to the bus stop chicane here. I can't imagine there's going to be a move from the V12 Crossfire into this braking zone, but he can imagine it maybe himself, as he will send it back up the inside then into the penultimate corner there. And Matthew Williams says, you know what, that's fine. And Deegan Fairclough uses that opportunity to head into the pit lane. Williams just crashed in the pit lane. He's crawling. He's creeping towards the pit line. That car is not healthy. He's come to a complete standstill.
That has disconnect written all over it. Look at that has tech issues written all over it. That's such a shame. I mean, it was critical for Fairclough, and thank goodness if it is a disconnect, it didn't happen about 10 seconds earlier, because then it would have affected Fairclough as well. But yeah, critical lap for Deegan Fairclough, who will find himself in the net lead of the race.
He'll also find himself with a penalty for Deegan Fairclough. I assume that's a pit lane infringement of some description for Deegan Fairclough. Probably speeding in the pit lane, yeah. So Deegan Fairclough, everything coming on one day, rain, sunshine, all kinds of good and bad news. And now it's up to Deegan to try and make it work even with that penalty.
Well, you said, what was it, 10 minutes earlier, that it was Fairclough and Keersmakers who always show pace, and something always happens. There's your something.
Mm-hmm. There is the something, and that's less of a something than what we sometimes see for Deegan Fairclough here. So it's still not irredeemable, but you got to feel that Michael Ayres will be very, very happy about that scenario, provided he is aware of the fact that Deegan Fairclough does have that penalty. And also, Williams now, DNFing from the race along with Frank Hamming, Dylan Platt, and Alessandro Quintay. Our top two in the championship out of the race here on lap 13. Here is Jack Mayer, now the sole flag flyer for the Stax Racing team. And he is bottled up behind Dino Paolini at the moment.
Yeah, and this hasn't worked out for Jack Mayer at all. He's been bottled up behind these guys. Volborn as well in front. So that means that Paolini's got the RS. and that's stopping Mayer from advancing, although you can see how much more confidence he's got with the grip of the fresher tyres, and they're both closing in on Volb 1. This could get messy into the final corner because you've got to pick which way you're going. You might have people coming into the pit at the end of the lap. Who knows? There goes Volb 1. Could see that coming. Now Paolini's going to be defenceless the next trip through Eau Rouge, Radion and down the Camel Straight. Yes, he's got the RS now. He won't have it when they get to the top of the hill, so should be a chance for Jack Mayer to get a little bit of clean air.
Yeah, this is almost bought and paid for move already for Jack Mayer as they run down the hill into Eau Rouge. Just about a quarter of a second between the two of them as they climb back up the hill once more. And that is going to be eviscerated once this DRS opens wide. And there you see it. Jack Mayer already alongside Dino Paolini before they get to the braking zone. Ahead of Dino Paolini in the braking zone. And ahead of him on track and up into 8th position now for Jack Mayer. 2.5 seconds between himself and the next obstacle in the form of Ivan Leonov. He finds himself well more than 8 seconds adrift of Michael Ayres, who has found himself ahead of Deegan Fairclough.
But the problem for Jack Mayer is that on the last lap, if you think of Watson Kiersmakers, he was fighting 1:45.4, 1:45.6 for those guys in P2 and P3 at the moment. Obviously, with the offset of the pit stops, Jack Mayer 1:47.5, 2 seconds slower, losing time, hand over fist. So when do those guys pit and take advantage of that, or do they just let Jack mess his tyres up in the train and say thank you very much, wait for all of those medium tyre runners to pit, and then come out in the clean air with fresher tyres and do Mayer that way?
I mean, we heard about the potential for a one-stop in this race from softs to mediums. Is that what Sandeep Singh, Kiersmakers and Amari Watson, is that what they're all planning to do in this circumstance, I wonder? Because it's been a while since the first soft runner came into the pits, and they are also resolutely out there on circuit as Michael Ayres sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1:43.6. Out there, currently in 5th position, but in the net race lead, having got ahead of Deegan Fairclough a lap or so ago.
Yeah, so Fairclough must have made a mistake on the last lap as well, because it was a slow one, 1:45.1 compared to Ayres' 1:43.6. So, yeah, but just looking at the gap, this one stop could work if you think about the time a pit stop takes. There's still 13 seconds between Ayres and Singh. So, and you probably only need to do another 2 or 3 laps. If you can get your softs 18 laps, then you can get a reduced fuel load with some medium tyres to the end of the race. No problem at all. So one stop's coming into play.
Sean Jones has just come into the pits and he's come back out in 14th position. His teammate James Lambert has also followed him in, but he is running well outside of the points at the moment. Sandeep Singh leads the way from Matteo Kiersmakers, 2 seconds adrift now, as Kiersmakers and Watson are beginning to pull away from Sandeep, who's out there in that Pescara, the only Pescara remaining in the race. Then Vodka Hoogstrup, who's definitely going to be a driver to watch as this race goes onwards. But interestingly, even though he's on medium tyres, he's still losing more pace to the front 3 compared to what he was a few laps ago.
Yeah, he is. So, as Watson comes in, so as his teammate Watson comes in, that'll stop Ayres from running into the back of him eventually. Only 5 seconds between them, and Ayres is so much faster, he would have been there within a lap or so. You can also try and pull off the undercut, of course, although it looks as if he's gone a little bit long in the box. And out he comes, Amari. So let's see where he comes out. Mayer is really the place he's looking as Hoekstra comes in, and Leonov as well. So Mayer goes across the line, and where's Watson going to come out in relation? Just behind him, but with fresher tyres. So this will be tasty up the hill.
You don't mind that if you're Amari Watson, and this might be move already done by the time they get to the first proper braking zone here, as Watson is close behind Mayer, not quite close enough potentially though. Does have the DRS advantage, so let's see, will the 860 racing car be able to catch up? Not quite by the time they get to the braking point for Les Camps. So that is going to be Jack Mayer holding Amari Watson at bay for a lap or so, but you've got to imagine it can't be much more than that with the pretty significant differential in terms of tyre life.
Yeah, there's 5 laps, so even if it doesn't happen now, it'll happen in 3, 4 or 5 laps. Because at some point, either Mayer's going to have to try and stretch his stint, or he's going to come into the pits in 10 laps or so. So, Watson will get a move on to get that done, no doubt, and should have that in the bag. The only thing is we did see Jack Mayer was pretty quick earlier on, and now he's got the free air. Can he stretch that advantage? That is the big question that we didn't ask there. Obviously, we're talking about the tyres. Battery Mayer's got a bit of speed tonight. Here's Hoekstra having pitted out behind Dabrowski, who's yet to pit. So still got Keersmakers yet to pit. Singh comes in, and Keersmakers does as well. Expect Paolini and Dabrowski in this lap as well.
Interesting that Singh and Keersmakers went a lap longer than Hoekstra did, even though Hoekstra started on those medium tyres. Here is Hoekstra now, looking to go around the outside of Blanchiment with Matthias Dabrowski, who is yet to pit there in the PLS car. Hoekstra cannot find a way past all that easily on the Polish driver. And then Dabrowski goes into the pits anyway, so Hoekstra won't be sending him any thanks for that one, I don't imagine, as Sandeep Singh emerges back into second place in this race with Deegan Fairclough in the pit lane, serving a penalty, I think.
Yeah, I think he probably will be. So, yeah, P2. That's worked out nicely, hasn't it? Keersmakers has lost a lot of time, but here comes Watson to the outside of Jack Mayer. Jack Mayer's made his defensive move nice and early in this, taking candy from a baby. Oh, he's gone sliding off as well. Keersmakers will have a go into Malmedy.
Ooh, another impressive hold there from Jack Mayer as the car absolutely revolted halfway through Les Combes there. But just about holding on to that bucking Bronco with Matteo Keersmakers, having seen plenty of Jack Mayer so far this race. And in fact, Amari Watson, Jack Mayer and Matteo Keersmakers, they've all sort of flipped around in terms of positions. It was Keersmakers, Mayer, Watson. Now it's Watson, Mayer, Keersmakers instead. And Amari Watson's got to feel pretty good about that, currently being in a podium-paying position.
Yeah, and all of a sudden as well, the gap between Singh and Watson, obviously with the Watson and Mayer and Keersmakers pitting a bit earlier than Singh, that gap's come down a little bit. It's only about 2.5 seconds now. So, battle for P2 on, you would say, although Singh has a bit of a strategical high ground now. If you look very carefully, you'll see the whites of Keersmakers' eyes as he sees the slithering stacks coming across the track towards him. He must have thought, oh dear, this is the end of the race. But decent car control from both of them, and they continue. Actually, Keersmakers dropped off a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any action on this lap between these three drivers. We're all just stringing out a little bit now, maybe looking to hold on to their tyres for a while. And it will be interesting to see what the idea is for the likes of Keersmakers and Sandeep Singh, having pitted late, of course, from softs onto mediums. How long are they planning on taking these medium tyres? Now, a Tapper comes into the pit lane, was in 9th, now will be falling well down the order, going from a set of soft tyres to a set of mediums, I believe, will be the order of the day here for the Dutch.
Yeah, I think it will be too, and that should get him easily to the end of the race. So let's see what everyone around him does down to P15. Obviously, it's the second stop of the race, having been involved in the first lap shenanigans. So a decent recovery so far. Obviously, a few DNFs helping him up the order, but back into the points. Although he will have to defend from newcomer Muru.
Yeah, Dabrowski's just got ahead of Sean Jones up ahead on the road from these guys. It is Tapper and Muru battling over P15, but Muru not really looking like a very lively battle there, as Tapper will hold on to 15th position, and that will give the Dutchman ample opportunity to close in to Hygo Poom in the TTF up ahead.
So this is really now where the driver's brains start working. What do I need to do? Do I need to attack this person to make my strategy work? Do I need to look after my tyres to make my strategy work? What is my strategy even? Has it changed from what I thought it was going to be at the start of the race, because my tyres might be doing better than I thought they would? All of this is starting to factor in, as well as it being the longest track on the calendar at 7 kilometres. So, it's mentally draining. When you're trying to complete a race, it's, 36 laps, it doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, it is in this situation. So, the guys are out there doing so well. Jack Mayer starting to slide a little bit. We saw him getting frustrated behind Keersmakers earlier on. He's now seen Watson blast past him. He's starting to slide, and that will not be doing his tyres any good. The only good thing for him is that we know he's probably not on a one-stop because he came in earlier anyway. So actually, the sliding won't matter too much in terms of tyre life. What it will matter is with lap time and actually putting himself under the cosh with Keersmakers behind.
Yeah, and that does look like it's a looming threat for Jack Mayer right now, as Keersmakers getting closer once again to the purple and yellow Stacks car, which is obviously standing out a lot on any circuit, even on a slightly cloudy day there in the Ardennes forest. Michael Ayres leading the way is comfortably building that gap lap after lap to Sandeep Singh behind. And with Deegan Fairclough having served that penalty, the battle isn't really there for Michael Ayres anymore. Ayres is basically just out there in front and just kind of needs to cruise home at this stage.
And going back to strategy very quickly, because we're talking about people like Ayres, like Singh was at the end of the first stint, cruising home, looking after the car, looking after the tyres. Dabrowski in P12 has just done the second fastest lap of the race, 1:43.7 on soft tyres. Now, we've seen someone like Sandeep Singh who's in P2, he's got a lot of pace. His best lap of the race was a 1:44.8. So there's a second between two people on the same compound of tyres. The flip way of the way you'd expect, if that makes sense. And that shows what a driver conserving his tyres is doing compared to a driver that isn't conserving his tyres and is absolutely pushing to make up as many points as he can.
Yeah, indeed. And Kiersmaker's just set the fastest final sector with the help of a healthy slipstream, and you can see getting another dose of that slipstream as he runs down the hill into a Rouge, back up through Radion and onto the Kemmel Straight, and this is going to be very, very close. Bumping over the curbs goes the Zederick of Matteo Kiersmakers, who is here with Jack Mayer already. Mayer will do well to be able to defend this one. It's going to have to be a very late braking maneuver for the Stacks, and he cannot find that. So Matteo Kiersmakers also dispatches Jack Mayer, moves himself back up into fourth position, and he'll be hoping to chase down Amari Watts.
Yeah, all Jack Mayer's going to be looking at now is what gap can he pull to your Hoekstras, Andrzejewskis, Leonovs, Faircloughs, so that when he makes his second pit stop that we're expecting in about 5 or 6 laps time, where's he going to come out in relation to all those guys? Fairclough will be biting at the bit to make sure that he can make up for his penalty down in P10 behind Leonov, behind Andrzejewski, a little bit wide through No Name. And he'll be so gutted because he had the pace today to challenge Ayres, and we saw he was past Ayres, past Williams into pit stops, and probably looks a little bit better on his tyres than the race leader now.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine so. And here's Vodka Hoekstra then with Dino Paolini. And Vodka Hoekstra on this contra strategy, doing a really, really good job at the moment. He needs to get past Dino Paolini, who's still on a set of medium tyres at the moment. The German goes defensive in the Royal Blue Racing car, a little bit deep, and then heads into the pit lane anyway. So that is going to allow Vodka Hoekstra some more clean air to keep charging down on the front five with the superior set of tyres.
Yeah, it's a big stint from Paolini, 21 laps, really impressive, and actually had decent pace as well, although his best was only ever a 1:45.8, so that really shows how much he's conserving. Kiersmaker's already on the back of Amari Watson, so Kiersmaker's showing fantastic speed at the moment, looking to get on the podium in his home race. So Zederick looking really, really tasty, and Tapper's shown really good pace despite his incident on lap one with all the commotion that was going on. So Zederick have looked a really, really strong package tonight.
Yeah, and it was only a couple of laps ago that we checked in with Tapper having come out of the pits just ahead of Mike Bell. Now the gap between those two drivers is 11 seconds. So that shows you just how much Dow Tapper has been putting his foot down in the last few laps. Next up on the list for him is Sean Jones, who currently occupies 13th position.
Yeah, Tapper was actually fastest on the track last time around, 1:44.3, so he's really getting his foot to the floor to try and close in on Jones, as he said, in P13, and Paolini has just come out of the pits on those softs. Will be able to push because he extended his first stint so far, so Paolini could create some fireworks as he goes past Vauban straight away, actually. So Fairclough already up to 8 as well, past Leonov, and has Andrzejewski next up. Andrzejewski really, really impressive, standing in for Zubinski today. And again, a little bit wide through Stavlo and then through Paul Frere, but that's all right, and Fairclough will close in with the slipstream, probably set him up for a move at the top of the hill.
Yeah, Andrzejewski definitely making a good account of himself in this first race in this season of Superleague Lights. Deegan Fairclough wants to make the race just a smidgen worse by trying to get past the Polish driver, but I think anyone would realise that this situation is not an even fight. Deegan Fairclough could well have been the winner of this race had it not been for that penalty due to a pit lane infringement. And wow, that was not an intended move, I don't believe, from Deegan Fairclough. Made significant contact there with Andrzejewski, but I think Fairclough was just caught out by how early Andrzejewski braked.
Yeah, Andrzejewski obviously trying to conserve his tyres, probably on a one-stop. Maybe it's in his best interest to let Fairclough through here. He's obviously faster, and maybe look at the gap towards Jack Mayer up front. But look, they're going to bang, and we've seen this a bit from Deegan so far this year. Oh. Yeah, you can see that coming. You can see that coming, and now Leonov's caught up in it as well. So that's happened. That's frustration for you, and unfortunately, Deegan's out of the race.
Deegan is out of the race, and you have to feel for Ivan Leonov in that situation as well. I mean, even if you can see in Leonov's cockpit, maybe you could say Leonov could have anticipated something happening with what had just transpired between Andrzejewski and...
He's got damage. He's got damage as well. Yeah. You can see it grabbing.
Exactly. And, you could say to the end of days that, maybe he could have seen it coming. But at some point, you have to drive somewhere on the road. You can't just stop and wait for them to crash and then move onwards. And Leonov, I don't think there was a way to guess right in that scenario. And Bulgarian with damage after what has been a very promising race here. That's going to feel very, very bad for the Revo driver.
Yeah, well, what he did is he went right to miss Andrzejewski and ended up hitting or finding Fairclough coming across the road. But like I said, you could see it coming. You got Fairclough who's frustrated after his penalty. Andrzejewski would have been frustrated after getting a bit of a biff from Fairclough at turn 1 at the source. And then they were giving each other no quarter. Further up the road, hopefully this will be a little bit cleaner, is Kersmacher's on the back of Watson. Watson goes defensive early down the straight, and it means that Kersmacher's will have the outside line. Heavy braking, easy as you like. That's textbook, a little bit wide, but it comes off nicely into P3. That's how you do it.
I think that just shows us how late that was on the brakes for Matteo Kersmacher. Only just managing to keep the car on the road on the exit of the first part of the chicane. And great driving from the Belgian, who has come alive in this second stint of the race and will be hoping even to start challenging Sandeep Singh's grip on second position. Plenty laps left in which to do that. And Sandeep Singh and Kersmacher, of course, pitted, I think, on the same lap as one another. So they won't have much of a difference in terms of tyre performance, although, of course, Kersmacher has been having to use a bit more rubber in the battles with Watson and Mayer over the last few laps.
Yeah, using more rubber and obviously having the turbulent air as well, so a little bit more sliding. But now he's got the pace. He's got to try and make sure he gets out of that DRS range with Watson behind him. So that's now race critical for Matteo Kersmacher. Just want to give a shout out down P15. Stefano Zanrosso first start, and he's really competitive actually, doing really nice competitive lap times and pulling away from Mike Bell as well. So hopefully that's a point coming Stefano's way.
Yeah, Stefano Zanrosso would be a nice point for HG Esports Blue Bolt as well. The team haven't necessarily been inundated with championship points so far this season, sitting 13th overall. The main point scorer for them has been Giuseppe Saracino. Saracino not present here today, so it is Stefano Zanrosso who's trying to bring something home for the team in Burgundy. As right out of the front, we have Michael Ayres still leading the way from Sandeep Singh, and the lap times between the two of them, they've been remarkably similar the whole way through. It's been, ever since Deegan Fairclough came into the pits to serve the penalty, Michael Ayres has been consistently about 0.2 of a second faster than Sandeep Singh lap on lap.
Yeah, and this is what we were saying before the race as well, wasn't it? You look at Williams, Kintyre, Singh, Lalu, when they get into a rhythm, when they're able to get into a rhythm, they are just metronomic. They are absolutely consistent, and that's why they're the top 5 in the championship. Obviously Lalu got caught up in the first lap as well as Alessandro Kintyre did, so that ruled them out today. Williams obviously with his issues at the end of the first stint as well. So no, Singh and Ayres though doing that metronomic consistency that we're so used to, and that's why they're 1 and 2 in the race at the moment. Let's see what Kersmacher can do to close the gap though down to the second place man Sandeep Singh.
Thus far, this has been an excellent race for one team in particular, I would say, and that is the PLS team. Andrzejewski up there in 7th. He's gained plenty of positions from where he started, but Matthias Dabrowski is up 13 into 8th at the moment, and slightly getting closer now to his teammate up ahead. So as ever seems to be the case, usually it's Dabrowski and Zubinski who end up very close to each other on track. This time, it's Andrzejewski and Dabrowski, and even though Dabrowski qualified far further back on the grid than Andrzejewski, nothing can keep the two PLS cars apart. They always end up converging at some point during the race. Here now is Douwe Tapper, who's just going to be able to get a slick move on Sean Jones into the braking zone of the bus.
Yeah, Sean Jones didn't fight it too much either. Knew that Douwe had fresher tyres, and he's just happy to settle in and pick up the points he will inevitably get if he stays on the road. Leonov into the pits, as was Jack Mayer at one point as well. So Mayer's managed to come out in front of Andrzejewski, so that's what he managed to do. He's only lost, one position by pit into Vodka Hoekstra. Critical that he made that gap. Now he's got a 14-second gap in 11 laps, plenty long enough to close in. Zanrosso's back into the pits, so let's see if he can get his way back into the points as well.
It's going to be soft tyres to the end then for Stefano Zanrosso and pretty much anyone who pits at this stage of the race with just 11 laps remaining now. And Michael Ayres still leads the way from Sandeep Singh and Matteo Kiersmakers. Here are the PLS cars, and that looks like formation flying to me. Dabrowski being allowed to pass Andrzejewski.
Yeah, so Dabrowski obviously he pitted later and has got fresher tyres, so that makes a little bit more sense. And obviously Dabrowski will be much faster. Is that Michael Ayres into the pits? I think it is Michael Ayres.
And to be fair, we're still not absolutely certain that Singh and Kiersmakers aren't going to the end on their current sets of medium tyres, so it might not be over just yet in terms of the battle for the race win. With Michael Ayres coming back out on soft tyres, you've got to imagine he's going to be quite a lick faster than the likes of Kiersmakers and Singh to the end of this race, but he is coming out behind them in terms of track position.
Yeah, so it's how fast he's able to push whilst conserving the tyres to get them across the 11 laps. That really is what will decide the race. He hasn't got a massive gap to close down, but yeah, the tyres will really be the deciding factor. I'd be surprised if Singh, Kiersmakers and Watson couldn't get to the end, having pitted 18 laps into the race, as Volbon and Andrzejewski pit. So that'll be why Andrzejewski got out of the way, is because he came into the pits and was pitting anyway. No point in holding your teammate up. And Jones is in as well, so plenty of pit stops down the order now. Let's see, as you said, what Singh, Kiersmakers, Watson do.
Sean Jones coming back out of the pits, still inside the points. So that's nice stuff for Sean. What I believe would be the first points of the season for Sean Jones. Jonas Holborn, currently there in 13th, has had some very high point scoring finishes, but only a couple. And other than that, he's tended to be down towards the tail end. Here he goes now, trying to make himself a little bit less of a tail ender by getting past Ivan Leonov, the slightly wounded Ivan Leonov in that Revo, who now falls down yet another position into 13th.
Yeah, so how quickly your race can turn happily in the top 10, running quite nicely, and then you get involved in this that wasn't your fault, and now you're being overtaken for P12. So Volborn up a position, Leonov down a position. Lalu back into the top 15. It remains to be seen though whether he needs to pit again. I imagine he probably does, having pitted at the start on lap 1 with Douwe Tapper. So if Tapper needs to pit again, he has pitted twice actually, Lalu, so he might be able to get back Hoekstra into the pits as well, so that will promote Jack Mayer back up a position as well. So looking at it, Singh, Kiersmakers, Watson, I think Dabrowski as well maybe. Dabrowski's in the pits. Paolini got to lap 21, didn't he? So he won't pit again, definitely. So he's really given himself a really good chance of points. Hoekstra just out in front of the Royal Blue Racing Machine.
Yeah, so Hoekstra doesn't really lose out too much with that additional pit stop there. Paolini going to be pretty comfortable there in 7th as well. Douwe Tapper, the next car up the road for him, and there's a fair buffer in terms of raw time between Paolini and Tapper. And then you got the likes of Dabrowski here, and that's, I think, Hygo Poon, who is going to be nearby to Dabrowski on the run down towards Lekon. Hygo Poon might think about trying to make a move here on the Polish driver. The Estonian has quietly been having a very solid race. Hygo Poon up into 10th at the moment, looking to make it 9th position here with the DRS wide open, going to the outside of the braking zone for Lekon and not being able to get past Dabrowski on this occasion.
And that was the one chance he'll have, because now Dabrowski will just fly basically into the distance with the fresher rubber. So PLS P9. Imagine Ondrzejewski will be over Hygo Poom on his fresh tyres soon as well for P10.
So now, Sandeep Singh, Kears Mackers and Murray Watson are still out there at the front. Michael Ayres just set the fastest lap of the race. It's a 1:42.8. It's a second and a half faster than what Sandeep Singh managed on the previous lap. A second and a half per lap. It's going to get him close. It's going to get him to Sandeep Singh on raw pace, but that ignores the fact that he's got a couple of obstacles between himself and the Indian driver in the Pescara. So watch out for Michael Ayres here trying to get back through. If Singh doesn't pit again at this stage, you've got to imagine he won't. It's not all over and done with here.
No, it's not all over and done with. The problem is that his obstacles tend to chew the tyres up with dirty air as well. So yeah, it's not just a straight. It's going to be a second and a half per lap. You imagine Watson wouldn't be too much of an obstacle. So Kears Mackers really is the flying out. There you go. There go E6 E-Racing. And Kears Mackers will want AP2 at home. There is no doubt about it. So that won't be an easy one as Hygo Poom makes his pit stop and will fall below a few drivers. I think Lalu will go through. Zan Rosso won't be too far back either for P15.
Yeah, it seems like the battle for that final point scoring position is between Hygo Poom and Stefano Zanrosso at the moment, and it seems like Hygo Poom has the advantage with both fresher tyres and track position on the Italian. You've got to imagine this one is going the way of TTF Racing, barring some kind of major shift in one part of the track or another. Speaking of which, here is Michael Ayres. Look how much more grip he had through that final couple of corners compared to Matteo Kiersmakers. Kiersmakers is going to do a very good job if he's going to hold Michael Ayres behind right now. It's definitely not an easy task.
No, it's not an easy task, and you imagine Ayres will have a lot more traction, though he got a little bit slidey out of that source. Still probably get a bit more traction, though, than Kiersmakers on the older medium tyres. Then he'll be able to keep his foot in a little bit more through a Rouge and Radeon. DRS opens now. Slipstream, yes, please. Let's see what defending Kiersmakers does, if any at all. He didn't need to. Ayres wasn't close enough. Now let's see what sort of time deficit Ayres has to sing on this lap. Obviously last lap he was basically given a freebie, still a second and a half faster than Singh. This time it's going to be a bit slower. He was fastest of all through the first sector, obviously with the DRS as well. His Macca's wide as we started descent through P1.
No, this is going to be a frustrating half a lap or so for Michael Ayres. Not really any opportunities to get past the car ahead in the middle section of the lap here at Spa. Very fun corners to drive, but not necessarily ones which are very conducive to racing side by side, but they will set you up for the run towards, or rather through, Blanchiment and then into the bus stop chicane. We are there on the back end of the circuit. You can see the slipstream effect already in effect here for Michael Ayres, who's going to have to make a decision, outside or inside, or just sticking in behind through Blanchiment. It's going to be the latter, sticking in behind, but now we'll have the opportunity. Goes to the outside in the bus stop, and Kiersmakers only just giving enough space there, but there around the outside, taking the inside for the second part of the bus stop. Michael Ayres take a bow up into second.
Yeah, now he's got to break the toe, though, through the two DRS zones. He might have been a little bit better off knowing the speed he'll have on those tyres, just slingshotting through at the top of the hill. Let's see what Kiersmakers can do about it. Might not have the traction to do anything, but obviously DRS will help him. Let's see how close he can follow through a Rouge with those older tyres.
Yeah, you could see there that Michael Ayres was trying to drive on odd parts of the racetrack to deny a slipstream to Matteo Kiersmakers, trying to do it again here. Kiersmakers dips back out of the slipstream and will not get close enough in the braking zone. So Michael Ayres holds on to second, gets away with the early overtake in terms of track position, gets away with that scot-free, and now can just focus entirely on one driver alone, that being Sandeep Singh in the Pescara.
Yeah, so now Singh is going to be probably quite annoyed that Kiersmakers could only hold Ayres up for about half a lap, because that 3-second lead is going to evaporate. 7 laps to go, 6.5 laps to go to come through Fania. Yeah, no chance for Singh unless he makes his car the widest car there's ever been in GPVWC history. Michael Ayres looking good at the moment.
And you could see how, I mean, obviously the move on Kiersmakers wasn't easy for Michael Ayres, but that was at an overtaking place that is not the optimum at this circuit. He did not need to wait for Lecomte, which means that it would have been very easy if it had got to the point where they were getting into Lecomte, because Michael Ayres would have already been ahead of Kiersmakers by that time with the DRS. So, point being, you have to imagine that it's going to be an easy move for Ayres on Singh here, and even if Singh has the widest car in the world, I don't think it can be wide enough here. With the differential between the two and the length of the Kennel Straight, it seems very unlikely that Singh will even be alongside Ayres still when they get into the breakpoint.
So it all come down to tyre drop-off. Has Sandeep saved enough of his tyres to be able to defend aggressively? Will Michael Ayres have enough tyres left when he gets there? Who's, I say, only a second faster, but he was only a second faster on the last lap. Bear in mind, he'd already got the move over Kiersmakers done by that point. So no DRS helping him, so that would have taken a bit of time help out of his lap time, and obviously just a little bit of the tyres going off already as well. Still 5 laps to go, and he still should have enough in there, but it won't come as easy the longer the time goes on. 2 seconds is the gap at the moment.
2 seconds is the number for now, but it will not be the number for all that much longer. Sandeep Singh does lead the way in this race. He hasn't had the honour of doing so for many portions of this race, but since Ayres came into the pits about 4 or 5 laps ago, Sandeep has been out there at the very front, where Alessandro Quintai, his teammate, will feel he ought to have been had it not been for that incident early on with Michael Ayres. And Quintai would love to see his teammate keep Ayres at bay, I'm sure. But I don't think it's going to be that easy for Sandeep at this stage. Looking down the rest of the field briefly while we have a moment, it's still Kiersmakers there in third in the final podium place. It doesn't seem like Amari Watson is going to be closing in on Kiersmakers come the end of the race. Jack Mayer on those fresh softs doesn't have enough pace to challenge for 4th position as things currently stand, but nor does he have to worry about Vodka Hoekstra in 6th. Dino Paolini doing a very solid drive to 7th at the moment. Tapper is closing down on the German, but not really fast enough. And then you got 11 and a bit seconds down to Matthias Dubrovsky, and a further 6.5 to Andrzejewski. So the 2 PLS cars look pretty nailed on in 9th and 10th.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really strong race from the Polish outfit. Talking about the constructors, really crucial points that Sandeep Singh is picking up at one small stretch. The slender gap in the Teams Championship over stacks with Williams' DNF and obviously Quintai out as well. It's basically a straight battle between Singh and Mayer for the team's points today, and Singh is obviously out on top. The question is can Ayres help stacks a little bit and limit the damage that is being done, because obviously Singh will lose points if Ayres gets through. So yeah, the gap's coming down, and there will be DRS on the next lap for Michael Ayres. That is a certainty.
It's only a matter of time now for Michael Ayres. Whether it's on lap 33 or whether he has to wait till lap 34, there's still plenty of time left in this race. Once they cross the line, there'll be just 4 laps left to go. And it's still, at Spa, 4 laps is a bigger proposition than it is at some other circuits. One of the longest circuits on the calendar. I think the longest circuit on the calendar, in fact. There you can see is that. Oh, Sandeep Singh. Oh, I see. Canny driving from Sandeep Singh, opting to let Michael Ayres through in last source. That is in hopes of Sandeep getting the DRS and thus being able to re-overtake Michael Ayres once they get onto the Kennel Straight here. That's exactly what we're going to see happen. Ayres doesn't really have any option right now, but to let Sandeep Singh back up his inside. And Ayres will try and brake later around the outside, just about justifies the space, but goes off circuit in the process. And canny driving from Sandeep Singh maintains the lead for a lap longer at least, but you've got to imagine that Michael Ayres won't be falling for that one again.
Be a bit annoyed about it, I'll say that much. Very clever driving for Sandeep Singh, knowing that he probably wouldn't have had the grip to hold off. He has, well, he did on the lap before the last lap, do his personal best. So he's still got some tyres left. But Yeah, the problem is if you're Michael Ayres, how do you stop that from happening? Because you can't let Keersmakers come up to the back of you. That gap's gone back down to 2 seconds now between the front two and Keersmakers. So you can't just stand on the brakes and make it Monza quali from F1 a few years ago, because Keersmakers and Watson are going to be all over the back of you. So now he's got to start thinking about how he's going to defend. Does he give Singh the inside again, or does he try something different?
Maybe he tries to take it into the bus stop instead. Here, Singh forced to go defensive already before they get onto the main straight, and they're still trying to get around the inside there, but Singh, with a great wall of death on the outside of the final corner, will hold on to the position for now. But you've got to imagine this is going to be a rinse and repeat maneuver from Sandeep Singh. You can see they slow to a crawl. Monza quali is the perfect comparison there, and eventually Sandeep Singh decides he has to go for it, but Michael Ayres was quick enough with the reactions. It's like a safety car restart, and Ayres has passed that particular test because you can see he's already just a tenth behind Sandeep Singh at this stage, and Michael Ayres, with some patience, has the inside line now. Will Sandeep Singh break late enough? No, he will not, and Michael Ayres reclaims the race lead once again.
Yeah, now what Sandeep's done is exactly what I was saying. Keersmakers just about into DRS range now, so maybe Sandeep might not even get a P2 with the DRS for the Zedric. So I guess he went all or nothing, and it might turn out to be just a little bit better than nothing, but not all, definitely not all.
Yeah, and credit to Michael Ayres as well for having the reaction times to be able to get back on the throttle as soon as he saw that Sandeep was just going for it and giving up on the DRS. Because it would have been easy for Ayres to just react a little bit too late and end up just a couple of tenths too far back to be able to make the move on this lap, and then you'd have had a whole nother song and dance on the next lap, which I would have loved to see. But as it is, Michael Ayres was too wise for that one in the end. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, or however on that other way around, but you know what I mean. Michael Ayres now leads the way here in Belgium, and he should be just able to coast home to another victory in this Super League Lights season.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff that will be talked about, maybe with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek on the GPVWC Discord channel, which is, of course, free for everyone to join. It's a good load of fun, and if you're interested and want to join as a driver or a team manager, or just want to get involved in the community, obviously we're getting to summer break now, and then everything will open up at the end of the season for next season. That'll have plenty of fun and games afterwards with Sandeep's tactics, I am sure. 2 laps to go, and it looks as if Sandeep's got enough pace to hold Keersmakers off, actually, so not too much trouble with Zedric coming into his DRS. He managed to break that gap.
And with that, I don't think we have any more battles looking like they're going to be happening on circuit. The race has it's coming to its conclusion a couple of laps early here, but it does seem like the order we have now is going to be the order that the drivers will cross the line in when the checkered flag does fall. Just seeing if there's anyone who's particularly fast out there on circuit at the moment. Yokopeka Lalu is going very quickly in 14th and closing in on Ivan Leonov, but still it's only about a second a lap for Yokopeka, so I don't think there's going to be quite enough time left for the Finn to close in and claim one more position before this race gets to its conclusion.
Well, you're braver than me for calling it done and dusted a lap and a half early, especially on the longest track on the calendar, especially knowing what we can have in Super League Lights. Although I do tend to agree with you, it has settled a little bit. This is what happens when you get strategy. You have your massive crescendo, and then everyone settles down and goes, yes, I'll take P2, thank you. Keersmakers does look actually as if he's a little bit faster in the final sector than Sandeep Singh, and that's gotten a bit closer. So is there one last little bit of action to be had?
It looks to me like Sandeep Singh is one of the best drivers in terms of traction on the exit of the bus stop onto the pit straight. And I think that's helping Sandeep to keep Keersmakers just at arm's reach, just outside of that DRS range right now. Keersmakers, you see, 1.1 seconds behind the Pescara. And that is just enough to keep Sandeep Singh in safe territory here. And as we're on the final lap of the race now, I think the last chance has come and gone for the Belgian to claim second at his home race, but third, going to be a treat nevertheless.
Yeah, he'll be absolutely thrilled, no doubt, especially like we said with the up and down season that those sort of guys, 6 downwards in the championship, have had. Third will give him plenty of points and give him a real good chance of leaping up the standings, with Lalu only P14, Harvey not here at all, and obviously Kintai Williams coming back towards everyone, not finishing. So as good as it is for Ayres, people like Kearsmakers and Watson and everyone, fighting for the lower reach of the top 10, massive boost for them. But here is the star of the show, really, Michael Ayres, who has looked almost untouchable, obviously pitted towards the end, but before that had a massive lead when all of his competitors fell around him.
Yeah, and they all really did fall around him. You say untouchable for the second half of the race, I completely agree. First half, those that could come close all mysteriously, well, not very mysteriously to be fair, but they all found their way out of the race. Kintai in contact with Ayres himself. Williams and Fairclough both could have been in with a shout to win this race, but as it is, the only one of them left standing at the checkered flag is Michael Ayres, who wins his 3rd race of the season here in Superleague Lights. Sandeep Singh will cross the line in second, with Matteo Kearsmakers wishing there was just one more lap to go, and he might have had a chance at it. Amari Watson claims 4th, and here comes Jack Mayer to claim 5th.
Lalu then is right up to the back of Ivan Leonov. Will he have one more run through Blanchemont? Let's see. He'll have a bit more grip. Nice through Fania. Look how much Leonov is starting to slide through the chicane into Stavlo. Critical for traction over the curb. You can use that, no problem at all. Through Curve Paul Frere. Now he's got the slipstream. We've seen the slipstream so effective on the run through Blanchemont. Let's see if Lalu can pick up a few more points for his championship predicament.
We know that Ivan Leonov is currently the walking wounded, so that will be blood in the water that Jukka-Pekka Lalu can smell as he goes towards the outside there. Leonov, very firm in the defence, shall we say. It's going to be a drag race up towards the line, but Jukka-Pekka Lalu has the nose ahead and will claim 13th at the checkered flag. Ivan Leonov forced to give it up, and he will only get 2 points for his efforts today.
Yeah, in fairness to Ivan, I think it was a bit more of a slide on his one tyres rather than a robust defence, to put it that way.
Yeah, and Igo Poom has now crossed the line to claim the 15th position and thus the final point scoring position in this race. So it has come to its conclusion. It was exciting in all kinds of different ways. All kinds of different battles took place in this race, and here we see then the results. As Michael Ayres, you can see on screen there, was the race winner from Sandeep Singh and Matteo Kearsmakers, 2nd and 3rd. Both of them went for 1 stoppers, but they could not keep Ayres at bay. Same story for Amari Watson in 4th. Jack Mayer will be happy with a 5th place finish, but unfortunately stacks do fall further behind Pescara as a result of Singh finishing further ahead. Hopke Hoekstra and Dino Paolini both had good drives up to 6th and 7th in this race. Douwe Tapper with a great recovery drive to 8th, with Dabrowski and Andrzejewski bringing home some decent points for PLS. And Yanis Volborn also with a decent point scoring position in 11th. Sean Jones scoring what I believe is his first points of the season in 12th. Jukka-Pekka Lalu was forced to have a bit of a recovery drive and claim 13th position on the checkered flag itself, ahead of Ivan Leonov, who was involved in an incident that was not his own. Igo Poom there in 15th, scoring the final point, with Stefano Zanrosso, Mike Bell, James Lambert, Rauno Muru, and Jorn Dix all making it to the end of the race, but all failing to score points. And then the DNF was, we have Deegan Fairclough, Matthew Williams, Frank Hamming, Dylan Platt, Alessandro Kintai rounding it off. And of the 5 cars that did not finish this race, 3 of them could potentially have won it. So I think that shows you just how much of an interesting race we had in store for us today. But now I believe we will be going to try and take...
Jacob, we have a full podium of interviews to have. So I will bring our race leader in, and I will let you browse his brain, really. Browse his brain.
Browse his brain, all right. That's I'll give that a go. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Hello.
So, first off, congratulations. How are you feeling after that race?
Surprisingly, not that great. Although we won, yeah, I'm happy that I won. However, I think the incident on Quintai on lap one, I'm not too feeling good about it. Even though I haven't kind of had a chance to look at it yet, so I won't comment too much on it. And
Sure.
I think Williams was probably a little bit quicker, so I think we got fortunate with his, I think, a mechanical failure in the end.
Mhm. Yeah, no, odd incident for Williams for sure. And I won't ask you about that first lap incident. Obviously, if you haven't had a chance to retake a look at it, it's hard to understand what's going on in the heat of the moment. But you had a lot of contenders for your race win today. They all ended up falling by the wayside in one way or another. You mentioned perhaps that you weren't necessarily confident at keeping Matthew Williams behind. How did you feel about the threat that Deegan Fairclough posed in this race?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Deegan was coming up pretty quick, and I think when he did kind of pass, I was kind of glad that he passed. I thought maybe he could scrap with Williams and kind of slow him down, because again he was definitely quicker. However, yeah, I expected him to be a threat, and then obviously I guess he had a penalty, so that kind of cleared him out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so with a big points haul here, and with Quintai and Williams both failing to finish, obviously you're still not exactly right up there with Williams in terms of the championship, but you are right there with Alessandro Quintai now. In fact, I think you'll be moving ahead of the Italian and into second in the drivers' standings. Do you think with a couple more races like this, and Matthew Williams hasn't exactly been having the best time of it in the last few races, do you think it's still possible for you to challenge for the overall championship?
Yeah, I mean, I came into this season not expecting anything apart from kind of just getting the odd win or two. But yeah, never say never. However, if these things keep happening and I keep getting a big point, loads of points on them both, we'll see when it comes down to the final race. But never say never.
Indeed, never say never. Thank you very much. Any further questions from yourself, Ewan?
No, just going to point out, it's obviously what Michael's done is brilliant, considering he missed the first few races. Unlike his championship competitors, of course, as well, his teammates have changed a bit as well. So, yeah, mega job. And obviously, the only question I had is with Sandeep at the end, Michael, and his DRS tactics. How worried were you? The second time, obviously you've seen them do it, and obviously you've had to come off the gas to try and pick the DRS up yourself the second time round. But obviously you can see Matteo coming up in your mirrors. So what was you thinking there? Were you thinking, right, this has to work this time, otherwise I'm in trouble, or was it quite composed?
Yeah, so the first time I thought, all right, fair enough. Like he's gonna let me by and just probably, take my toe and let me pull him along. And then he got past, and I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Definitely not on my plan. And then obviously the next lap, I thought, there's like a 3 or 4 second back to Matteo. So if he tries it again, I'm just not going to let him do it. So he can either kind of give up both positions or just give up the one, and it kind of worked, I guess.
No, but I'll tell you what we're going to do, Jacob, if it's all right with you. I'll bring Sandeep in straight away and see what he says about it. Sandeep, congratulations on P2. We're just talking to Michael there about your little DRS tactic. He said he wasn't expecting it. He thought you were just going to pick up his toe and make sure you got P2. Obviously, you had other thoughts. Just talk us through that.
Michael knows there was chicken wings on the line. I bet him a few nights ago. It was like, whoever wins is going to get a bowl of chicken wings from Weatherspoons. So, yeah, I knew. I think I played the Joker too early, and then on the second time he learned, and he stuck behind me. I was like, oh bugger! And I had to just give up because then Matteo was getting close to me, so I had to just settle for second place. But yeah, fair play to Michael. You drove a good race. I think I got the maximum out of the strategy today. I don't think I could have got any more. Maybe I made a couple of mistakes. It probably cost me like half a second here and there, but that was it. Not much else I could do.
Jacob, over to you, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously that's the story of the end of the race, and you mentioning that you reckon you got the most out of the strategy. How difficult was it to run that strategy? Obviously doing the one stop when most others were pulling off 2 stop in the race.
Oh, it was easy.
Okay, fair enough.
It was easy. It was easy. Nah, I mean, I knew from like previous rounds I had good tire weight in general, and then yeah, it was all about managing the rears. I was pretty good on the front tires anyway, but yeah, I was trying to manage the rear tires. Yeah, I mean, we had and also I needed to make sure I had a good car in the straight line. It was a big thing for me because France was absolute waste for rounds, and I feel good to bounce back with a P2 here. And yeah, the strategy was alright. I think I could have switched to 2-stop because I felt like they weren't too far ahead of me in the first stint, but we'd stuck to the plan of a 1-stop. I was really banking on the 2-stop guys to get stuck in more traffic, but I think the top 3 in that first stint drove a really good pace. They were able to pull out a pit gap, so they didn't really get held up much, which is a shame. But yeah, oh well, P2, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, as you should be, and it also helps Pescara out in the team's standings because now the gap has extended. It was just 5 points between Pescara and Stax. It's now got a little bit bigger, a little bit more comfortable, perhaps in the Constructors' Championship. Are you guys at Pescara feeling confident about taking home the Ultimate Constructors standing?
Still early, mate. Still early. When we go into the summer break on, I mean, you got P2. I mean, you got unlucky with Quintai having a DNF, which I mean, it is what it is, and then you got summer break, then 5 races to go. I mean, as we've seen, the championship can swing back and forth. I don't think anyone's a favourite at this point.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think always makes sense to avoid going too hard on predictions and that sort of thing. But I always like to ask just in case someone has something explosive to say. But yeah, so I guess next question, final question for me. What are you feeling about those next upcoming races? Obviously, as you mentioned, we got the summer break coming up, but after that, Italy, Singapore, Japan, those tracks singing out to you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, it's my team's home race for Italy, so we want to do a strong showing there for the team. And then Singapore, I got P2 there last year. Who knows what will happen? Hopefully, I can go one better. And then I've always been good around Japan, so yeah, I'm looking forward to these next 3 races.
All right, grand. And I'm sure everyone watching is, and we certainly are as well. Thank you very much for the interview, Sandy.
Thanks.
Jacob, we've got a bit of a real special treat. We've got home hero Mateo Kismakers, not Laurent, if you know, you know. With a bit of a faux pas that I've made already this season. But Mateo, welcome, congratulations, and Jacob, take it away.
Yeah, so Matteo, first off, I'm going to ask you about this as well. On the last few laps, I'm sure you noticed something going on between Ayres and Singh in La Source with only a few laps left to go. What did you think when you saw that? And did you think maybe you were going to be able to sneak your way into first position at that point?
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about getting into P2 there, but I think I was pushing maybe a little bit too much. And on the worn tires, on the rear tires, I just didn't. I made a few mistakes and I couldn't reach Sandeep anymore. So I think it was in it, but I tried to push a little bit too hard, I think.
Yeah, and it seemed like maybe on that final lap you were getting closer to Sandeep again. Do you think with one more lap you might have been able to try and sneak that second position away?
I'm not sure if I needed one more, but I think maybe 2 more because I know I had the straight line speeds to overtake people on the straight. So. But it's still tricky. So but yeah, maybe 1-2 laps more. We could have seen a nice fight between me and Sandeep. So yeah.
And obviously you managed to get a pretty clean race together today. I believe it's only your second podium of the season, despite the fact that you've often had some of the best pace at many races so far this season. You've been right up there in terms of raw pace. It just never seems to be coming together to you lately, but this was a much better race. Does this make you feel confident going forward about building a bit more consistency in terms of regular podiums and high point scoring finishes?
Yeah, I think so. I had a little bit of bad luck in the previous races. Of course, Manicourt was a little bit my own fault. Yeah, but the pace in Manicourt was really good, so I think I could have had a chance to a really good result there. But yeah, it is nice to build some confidence with a nice podium now at my home track as well. So yeah, definitely feels good.
All right, and any further questions from you?
Yeah, just asking how good is the car starting to feel? Obviously, for the first time, really, we've seen both of you guys, both you and Dower, up the top end. Obviously, Dower had the issue at the start of the race, but still managed to come back to P8, I think. So, How good was it today compared to the rest of the season that we've already had?
Well, I think the car felt pretty good all races. I think we showed we have the pace to be in the top 5 for sure every race. We had a bit of bad luck and a few driver mistakes, of course, along the way. But the car never felt really bad or something. It was always just a very nice setup to drive, very good car to drive. Thanks to, of course, the guys from Edge, which we work together, of course. No, the setup feels great. I think I didn't qualify outside the top 10 for sure. But I think the last races, my qualifying is like all pretty good. So the pace is definitely there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matteo. Thanks for jumping in with us. And obviously, congratulations on your podium at your home race.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so with that is all the interviews we'll be bringing you today, and thus we'll be wrapping up the show. Thank you very, very much for watching. This has been the GPVWC Superleague Lights Round 11, the Belgian Grand Prix, won in the end by Michael Ayres, but it could have been won by any number of drivers. I've been Jacob Hancox. Alongside me the whole time has been Ewan, Gale, Tom Stevens here in the box as well. And we all thank you for watching and wish you a good night.